Okay, so I'm just giving the COVID update, and I feel like a lot of things have changed since the last time we had this venue. So as many of you know, we've been setting targets for what we would like to see as far as vaccinations and what we want that percentage to be. What we're shooting for is 75% of our total population vaccinated in order to reach herd immunity. We know that we've got some limitations there because the vaccine is not yet available for kids under 12. And so right now, currently, we've got 61% of our eligible population that has received at least one dose of the vaccine. And then 47% of our total population is fully vaccinated, which is great. We are continuing to do vaccination events all around the county. We're doing what we call pop-ups, where we show up at a workplace or at a social place where people socially gather and give vaccinations there. We also take our we do mobile clinics as well. We take our van out and get people vaccinated. We are getting out into all of the reaches of the county at this time, and we've got multiple locations lined up for those over the next coming couple of weeks. As far as cases go, we are seeing a pretty steady hanging out at around 6 or 7 cases per 100,000 people. It's been holding at that line for quite a while now, and so that's encouraging. It hasn't bumped back up. Occasionally we do have days where, like yesterday, we got in 13 new cases, and then we hold our breath and wait and see if it's gonna keep up, but so far it keeps dropping back down. And I think many of you probably know that the mask mandate went away, and so there's no longer a mandate for mask wearing. It is still highly recommended that if you are unvaccinated or you're going to be around people that are unvaccinated, that you continue social distancing and wear masks, especially if you're in large gatherings. But that has gone from being a requirement to a recommendation. So I think that's what I have as far as the COVID update, and I'm happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
Does anyone have any questions? Wow.
Hey, Juan, I have a question.
Yeah.
Thanks. So Cindy, are you guys doing anything specific to reach the 21 to 29-year-old age group that we've heard is not philosophically resistant, but they're just don't want to be inconvenienced?
Yeah, so that is kind of what we're doing with our targeted pop-up and mobile clinics, is we're trying to go to places where people in that age group might gather. Currently, our breweries have been a very successful venue for getting those 20 to 29-year-olds vaccinated. At our first brewery event, we actually ended up vaccinating 68 people in like 2 hours. And so we're definitely seeing that success of getting out into the community where people are and making it really convenient for them. And we've been offering a variety of the vaccines as well, so that people can get the 1-dose Johnson & Johnson, or if they would rather have the Pfizer or Moderna, then we have those available as well.
Oh, and it looks like Rick Hall has his hand up.
Hi, do we have any idea what the uptake is on second doses for the double dose ones? Are people getting a single dose and then not going on to get the second, or do we track it?
We do track that, and actually it's been ranging between 93% and 98% that come back in and get that second dose. And in our clinic, we're actually doing some specific outreach to people who missed their second dose appointment to make sure that we can get them in for that second dose.
It looks like Bert.
Yeah, I had one question. Are you doing any incentives along with the pop-ups or anything like that? Like at a brewery, are you buying them a beer if they get a shot?
We are not doing any incentives like that right now, but we have had some businesses that say, hey, if you'll come do a pop-up at our business, then we will give this particular thing to people who show us their vaccination card. For example, one of the bowling alleys offered that, if we would come and do a pop-up clinic at their bowling alley, that they would give free bowling games and free shoe rental to people who show their vaccination cards. So when we're partnered with someone like that, and we are all about those incentives, but we're not specifically giving out any incentives at the health department at this time.
I'd be glad to come get my booster shot for a beer.
Juan, I think you're muted.
Thank you, Violet. I was just asking if there's any other questions or anyone on the phone that has questions. Well done, Cindy. This is amazing. This time last year, I never thought we'd be here. Thank you. Well, looks like Jordan from CAPS, our housing coordinator. Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Hey, thanks, Juan. I am sorry, I'm getting a real bad echo, so try not to react to that. I'm Jordan Lyons. I'm Missoula County's housing specialist. I've been here once before just to introduce myself, so thank you for having me back. It's always great to be here. And I just wanted to give everyone an update on our affordable housing strategic plan. So, you know, as I mentioned last time, I'm working with our consultants at Echo Northwest to create a strategic plan for affordable housing in Missoula County. And right now we're in a phase of stakeholder outreach. So we're really working hard to reach as many stakeholders as we can and get as much good input from all over the county as we can. So to that end, we have assembled our steering committee. We got some recommendations from them. We've done about a dozen one-on-one meetings with stakeholders and who represent, you know, all kinds of, the city, nonprofits, developers, people in real estate, community members, all types of folks. And we recently just completed our community needs assessment too. And that's an annual survey that we do. It's a non-scientific survey of people in the county. And this year we had a new record for participants, so we're really feeling good about that. We got a lot of good input. We had 887 participants. So thank you everybody who completed it and who shared it around with your network. That really makes a huge difference. We had housing as, we ask about things like housing, public facilities, infrastructure, all types of topics like that. And housing was far and away the #1 priority people identified: affordable housing or attainable housing. And fortunately we dived a little deeper on housing this time and asked some additional questions about it. And we have suggestions that just ran the gamut. People had a lot of support for more, they just want more affordable places to buy and affordable places to rent. Lots of support for down payment assistance, community land trusts. People made some suggestions we didn't have on there, like preserving manufactured homes and regulating vacation rentals, and really just ran the gamut. We have the full report. And we gave a presentation about it last night that will be on a video that will be on our website eventually. And that's available at the web address I will post here in the chat. And that's missoula.co/CNA. So you can find all the results there, and there's actually still time to give a comment too. So especially if you see something on there that, priority we've missed or something like that, there's the email address there, and this is the email address where it goes, just caps@missoulacounty.us. And I just wanted to mention, so we've got a great start on stakeholder engagement, but there's still plenty to do. I would really love to come to any of your individual community council meetings and talk to your neighbors. And also tonight, if anybody has questions or comments for me, I'd love to hear them.
Thanks, Jordan. It looks like I see TB. I'm assuming that's Tom Broder.
Tom Broder?
Yeah.
That would be right. It's actually Browder, not Broder, but that mistake's been made.
Thank you. Sorry, my mouth is full.
So we would like to have you at our June community council meeting and talk about affordable housing. And I know Jordan, we overlap with Bert's, but in fact, we could even share you if Bert's interested in having you. But we'd definitely like you on June 14th. It'll be via Zoom. I can send you all the details. But I think it'd be great up here, just, similar presentation to tonight. Just let the folks know like what's going on, how they can get involved with you. Housing's it's like totally stressing everyone out up here now. So could you do that?
Absolutely, yeah. And depending on how busy your agenda is, I can give you as much time as you like. That's great. Thank you, Tom.
Oh, we'll give you all you want. You're like the rock star to solve all our problems now.
And Bert?
Yeah, and Tom, I'll have to decline the offer. I've already got an agenda for June the 14th. Jordan, we all know that housing prices have gone just absolutely insane where, whatever the asking price is, you better offer 50,000 more if you think you're even going to have a shot. What can we do, or is there anything that we can do with these greedy landlords who their costs have not gone up, but the rents have jumped $200-400 a month, and people are losing the ability to pay, which in the long run may mean we lose students who cannot afford housing. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Bert. And I mean, the students are really dear to my heart. I came from working at where I helped students with their landlord tenant issues. It's challenging. Most of our regulations around landlord tenant law, I mean, pretty much all of them really come from the state legislature. So that's all in Montana Code annotated, and there's not really very much local control for that, unfortunately. And you're right. I mean, the way that it is now, we've had the eviction moratorium when people, when people can't pay their rent because they've lost a job or something like that, they have some temporary protection. But yeah, what we hear a lot, what I heard a lot in my old job, and I hear now talking to stakeholders, is an even bigger problem is people, their lease is getting terminated for no cause because the landlord wants to sell the house or jack up the rent, and there's no protection for those folks in this situation currently. So yeah, I think we got to just hopefully we're going to kind of like identify some strategies. And we're talking to a variety of stakeholders, and there are a lot of ways. Currently, Missoula County, some things that they do is they give support in financial rental assistance for people, and also people like housing navigators, landlord liaisons who help support tenants or kind of mediate between tenants and landlords. So those are strategies. Other strategies, getting legal representation, low-cost legal representation. One stakeholder talked to us about that. That can make a difference, even if it's a no-cause case or a non-payment. And probably too, if we want like a really big change, though, if we really want to move the needle, well, I think we probably have to be like looking to state government too.
Let me follow that up just a little bit with what you just said too, is that I support strongly helping people with their rent in times of need where they lost their job because of COVID, factors outside their control. But in supporting that, aren't we actually giving landlords a good reason to raise their rents?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, I think
maybe
that's a great question. Yeah. And there's like definitely kind of an issue of moral hazard. And one person was bringing that up too, of like, if you throw money at things like that, then that can just become like an expectation for landlords that that's, they will, screen in someone they otherwise would have screened out, or let someone stay, but they need like thousands and thousands of dollars to do that. So that's a risk. I think that's a really good point. And I think maybe that's where we get into like, we probably need like a full, like we need all the tools at our disposal, and not everything to just help landlords or everything to just help tenants versus landlords, but like a really comprehensive strategy.
Any idea where that might come from?
Well, I mean, I think we have tools like that. Like I said, we have we have housing navigators and landlord liaisons, and those are like, that's a strategy more of like, building a good relationship with the landlord. And then we have Montana Legal Services Association, and they had a program this year called the Montana Eviction Intervention Program, where they were getting more private attorneys to represent tenants in those situations. So that would be like a little more of a like put pressure on landlords, encourage them to settle, encourage them to do things that are more favorable. So there are a lot of ways you can go on it. And I'm thinking we probably are going to need kind of like all of the above on that.
Okay. I'd like to have you at our council meeting, but not in June, so we'll work that out.
Great.
Juan, can I throw something in here?
Yeah, go ahead, and then Tom. Yeah.
Hey. Yeah, thanks. So I just want to reiterate a couple of things, Bert, that Jordan said, but I just want to kind of put a fine point on them. Because of the form of government that county government has, we cannot pass a resolution around something like rent control, even if we wanted to. And I say even if we wanted to, because the city does have the proper form of government to do that. And this last session, the state legislature made that impossible. So the standard response to this in terms of policy is rent control. Rent can only be raised a certain percentage over a set amount of time. The legislature made that impossible. So Jordan is totally dead right on. The policy here is set beyond us, and we might have to go there. And we're not going to have any luck with that. So the other thing I wanted to say about landlords, and this comes from my own experiences being a landlord, is just to be careful not to toss all landlords under the bus. There were a whole bunch of landlords that use the rent they collect to make the payments on the building they own. And when COVID hit and people couldn't make their rent, certainly terrible. Somebody might get evicted. It's also terrible that the building itself could be lost. And there are greedy landlords out there, and there are bad attorneys and crummy school teachers. And there are also good people who play all of these roles. And they just want us to be careful in that. The landlord liaison, Alex, has been able to collect a whole bunch of landlords who've signed on to a program where they are promising to work with any tenants. And he's made his services available to landlords who are having issues with tenants in eviction prevention. So in as much as there are people out there who are greedily jacking the price when a lease is up, there are also folks out there who are trying to do the right thing as best they can. So that's all I wanted to add.
Understand. I asked this question as a landlord. Okay.
Tom? Or maybe Tom's hand was just left up from his previous comment.
I think it was left up. I'll take
Okay,
it down
sorry.
now.
Oh, so sorry. Thanks, Josh, for putting the point on it. Any other questions for Jordan? And then we're also expecting great things from Eco Northwest this fall. So yeah.
That's right. Well, great
Thank you.
discussion. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Don't go. Looks like Rick has his hand up.
Yeah, Blake question. I've got a planning and zoning background, so there's a fine line between property rights and personal rights. But what is being done in this affordable housing and to try to increase supply of affordable housing, try to encourage developers to build more? Clearly, it's probably cheaper for them to develop in the county than the city for some developers. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyway, is that part of the program?
Yeah, definitely like planning and zoning, land use are going to be a big part of it. And and so what we talked about this week is kind of like I think kind of the themes that are coming out on that are, you know, making sure that things are as, you know, as easy and fast, as inexpensive as they can be, and also maybe having some like incentives for developing affordable housing. And I think that's the type of thing where we talked about with our steering committee this week that we're going to need to get into like some groups that are like a little more technical to hash out like exactly how those should work. But I think those are kind of the themes we're talking about is, yeah, making it easy, as painless as possible, and incentives.
Josh?
Say, I know, I just can't help myself. I'm sorry.
6,000 units in Swipticane?
That's what you just said what I was
Yeah.
going to say. Exactly. Yeah. So in order to do development on bare ground, you got to put in road, sewer, water, sidewalks, run utilities. It's a tremendous infrastructure cost and really a barrier to doing large scale new development. We have made that barrier go away for the development community in the build area. 6,000, as Juan just said, 6,000 new units. I mean, it's going to take a while to build them out, and it's really complicated for developers to get that financing and make those deals happen. But we took care of the infrastructure costs, 6,000 new units. And Juan and Dave and I just recently approved nearly 300 units at the Y. So those things are done. We are not dragging our feet. The developers who are working there have to get their financing together and make those very complicated things happen. But that's 6,300 that are ready to go. The financing and the construction needs to happen next.
And I'm not sure if Rick knows where the Swipticane area is, or do you, Rick?
So
Sorry.
you know,
Okay.
And I am on the Impact Fee Advisory Board, by the way. So
Okay.
I'm trying to help
Right.
those developers pay for some of that infrastructure, so.
yeah, I mean, admittedly, it would be great if we could make those 6,300 things happen tomorrow. It's going to take a while, but it's not taken a while because of regulation. The regulation's been done. It's taken a while because these are complicated, huge business deals, and building materials cost a lot, and it's hard to get tradespeople and all of that. They're complex, but we have made that happen, and the table is set, so to speak.
And then actually, the Missoula Organization of Realtors just had their housing report that came out today. So folks should check that out. Anything else, Jordan, or any other questions? Thank you so much. You're very popular. So
Yeah, thank you for having me. Great to be here.
now we have wildfire smoke preparedness with Sarah Cofield. 'Tis the season, flooding and wildfire.
We're coming up on it. It is a wildfire preparedness month. I hope you don't mind. I do have a PowerPoint. It'll keep me on track. There we go. Is it showing my screen?
I was working on it. I'm getting a little pinwheel. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, awesome. Is it the full presentation?
Yep.
I'm on my laptop, so I'm a little. Can you see it?
It says wildfire smoke mitigation measures for indoor spaces.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Oh, okay. I'm going to go ahead and get started then. So my name is Sarah Cofield. I'm an air quality specialist with the Missoula City County Health Department. I wanted to take this opportunity to chat with you about a subject that I obsess over a little bit, which is preparing for wildfire smoke. We are looking at a potentially active fire season coming this year. We're supposed to have a hot and dry summer. And then our areas to the west of us are already in drought and expected to have extreme fire seasons again. So we are likely going to see smoke coming at us this summer. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, wildfire seasons themselves are longer and the fires are very large and very severe. Fire season itself has extended to now sometimes we have fires start in July and they burn until it snows. Now, one thing that I like to kind of point out when people are talking about wildfires is there's a lot of conversation about the flames and protecting homes, which is very important, but relatively few people are really threatened by the flames in most situations, but the entire community will be affected by the smoke. It affects everybody, which is a very big public health lift when you're looking at how to keep people safe. And when you're talking about wildfire smoke, you might have the question, what's in wildfire smoke? And the answer is a lot of things. Wildfire smoke is essentially a big chemical stew. Anytime you have incomplete combustion, you have a lot of stuff created. Our main pollutant of concern is particulate matter. We call it PM 2.5. It's 2.5 microns in diameter and smaller. And in wildfire smoke, it's that and smaller fraction, typically less than 1 micron in diameter. There's also a lot of chemicals. This is a very short list of those chemicals. So ones that kind of give you that stinging eyes and a headache and scratchy throat and give it that campfire smell are going to be things like your acrolein, formaldehyde, and benzene. There's carbon monoxide, which is a chemical asphyxiant. It's typically thought of as more of a concern for the wildland firefighters who have their faces right up in the smoldering fire. But there is some evidence that, yes?
Sorry, were you wanting to advance slides at all? We're still just on your first slide. Is that?
Oh, shoot.
So sorry. Yeah.
That's all right. It must not have liked going into presentation mode. Are you on my, can you see the third slide now?
No.
No, we're still on slide 1.
Oh, now we can see it.
Wow, this is doing it in a really weird way. That's okay. I can work with this. It's gonna be okay. But is it really small for you guys? Because it's really small for me.
No, it looks fine to me.
Okay, great. We'll work with this. This is fine. Like I said, this is the list of the chemicals in wildfire smoke. Only a very short list of the chemicals in wildfire smoke. There's just a gazillion of them. But carbon monoxide, like I was saying, is mostly a concern for wildland firefighters who have their faces kind of up in the smoldering remains of fire during mop-up. But there is some evidence that it can travel some miles from the fire, not nearly as far as particulate matter, but for communities who are right close to a fire, they may see some elevated carbon monoxide levels. And there are also PAHs, which are polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and those are carcinogens. So just a lot of nasty stuff in wildfire smoke. Like I said, the PM 2.5 is our pollutant of most concern. This is the very, very, very tiny particles that are so small that they bypass all of your natural defenses, can go deep into your lung and actually pass into your bloodstream, where they can set off an inflammatory response. They're just super bad for you. There's a lot of health effects that we associate with wildfire smoke exposure. Some of the things that people first start to notice when smoke rolls into town are going to be your stinging eyes and scratchy throat and headache that are really instigated by those chemicals, the volatile organic chemicals in the smoke. But the really more severe health consequences that we see, especially as a smoke event drags on, are from the fine particles in smoke. And that's where you start to see decreased lung function, increased frequency and severity of asthma attacks, worsening COPD symptoms. So COPD is your chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Think emphysema and chronic bronchitis. You see increased susceptibility to respiratory disease because particulate matter messes with your immune system, which was super fun knowing that going into COVID. You see increased risk of heart attack and stroke, and you also see increased mortality. Which really, this is one of those chemicals where like the more you learn about it, the more it's studied, the worse the news is. So it's just super bad, and we keep finding more and more endpoints of adverse health outcomes from smoke exposure. Now the question of, well, okay, we know it's bad, but who is it bad for? The sensitive groups that we talk about when we say people who are sensitive to wildfire smoke, it's a really big chunk of the population. We're talking children, all kids. Your lungs when you're young are still developing, so kids when they're exposed to the chemicals in smoke are exposing their developing lungs to those chemicals. They're also taking in more air for their body size than an adult does, so they get a higher dose. And they're also more likely to be running around in the smoke and therefore also increasing their dose. So children are a really big focal point of a group that we want to avoid being exposed to smoke. There have been some wildfire smoke studies that have shown that during a major smoke event, one of the age groups that has like the biggest increase in rate of admission to emergency departments for asthma problems are that 0 to 1 and 0 to 4 age groups. And then there's also was a study looking at rhesus macaques, monkeys who were exposed to smoke in 2007 in California as infants. They weren't intentionally exposed, but they're outside in cages. Researchers followed them for the next 10, 11 years of their lives and found that they had stiffened lungs, decreased lung function, and altered immune systems. And that altered immune function actually got passed on to their offspring. So we want to keep little lungs from being exposed to smoke as best as possible. The sensitive group population also includes people with underlying heart and lung disease, and this is all heart and lung disease. If you have high blood pressure, you're at increased risk from wildfire smoke. Also, people with diabetes are looking to be increased risk for wildfire smoke, and also people on dialysis. The elderly will be more likely to have some of these underlying health conditions, and also the systems have been through a lot as it is. So adding wildfire smoke to the mix is not a great idea. And those who are pregnant are also grouped in with a group of sensitive folks. That's 30% of the population. If you look at, okay, Missoula County, 100,000 people, give or take, that's 30,000 people who are sensitive to wildfire smoke. That's a lot of folks we want to keep protected. And also, everybody needs to avoid smoke exposure if possible. And now, because the fine particulate matter in smoke is such a nasty pollutant, it is a criteria pollutant. It is regulated by the EPA, and there's a national ambient air quality standard for PM 2.5 that is 35 micrograms per cubic meter of air. And this is for ambient air quality, and it's for human-caused pollution. So a lot of my normal job is working on reducing human-caused pollution to stay below that standard. We can't regulate lightning, unfortunately, so we get well above it during a fire event. But I wanted to kind of give you that benchmark if we want to stay below that 35. And then also point out the fact that there is no indoor air quality standard. There is no requirement that your indoor air quality be below that 35. And so if you want to have cleaner indoor air, you have to be proactive and take some steps to create that cleaner indoor airspace and not just expect because you're inside that you're going to have clean air. So with that kind of background knowledge, what do you do when smoke rolls into town? Well, first off, check the air quality. You can find near real-time data at Montana's Today's Air website. I put the URL up there. You can just also Google Montana Today's Air, and it'll take you to the state of Montana's monitoring data where you can get at 15 minutes past the hour the most current air quality reading for PM 2.5. If you are nowhere near a particulate monitor, you can look outside. If you can't see for 5 miles, then you are in unhealthy air quality and you should try to get into a place with better air quality. You want to put the sun to your back if you can, because particulate matter scatters the light really, really well and makes it look worse than it is. But just look outside. If you can see the air, it's probably bad, although it does take a while for that haze to really build up to hit that unhealthy level. So the rule of thumb is really 5 miles. If you can't see 5 miles, that's unhealthy air quality. So then once you're checking the air quality, I also recommend following our daily smoke reports. During a smoke event, I push out a ton of information about the wildfire smoke. You can find that information online at missoulacounty.us/currentAQ for current air quality. You can also just sign up for my email list and get all of my updates from the comfort of your inbox. I put my email address up there. It's just scofield@missoulacounty.us. And I can just add you to our list and you'll get all of our updates about wildfire smoke. Those updates are pretty comprehensive. We include information about the current air quality conditions and the associated health concerns, information about where the smoke's coming from, where it's going to, what's happening on the fire, if I have the information, if there's any like overnight fire activity, what to be aware of, how the smoke is likely to behave throughout the day. Is it going to get better? Is it going to get worse? Is it a good day to open every windows? Should you stay home and hug your air cleaner? I put information in there about how to stay protected from the smoke. If there is somewhere nearby with good air quality, I'll say, hey, hop in your car, drive 15 minutes, you're going to have better air. So we put a ton of information in these updates to help you kind of plan your day and get through the smoke event armed with as much information as possible. So then you want to also then be limiting your outdoor activity. When it's smoky outside, you just want to lower the amount of dose of pollutant you get, and you do that by kind of calming down, slow your roll. If you would normally be running in the smoke, if you just cut that down to a walk, you're reducing your exposure to smoke, so you aren't breathing as heavily. Ideally, you'll be inside in a place with clean indoor air, but you want to be limiting the amount you're exposing yourself to that outdoor air quality. And you can do that by changing up your activities a bit. The Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services has recently updated the guidelines for outdoor activities. This is the guidelines for they issued for schools and childcare. You can see there is a big emphasis on clean indoor air. They have also put out a version of this chart for the general public because they realize that not only kids go outside in wildfire season. So they have some great information, and the general gist is as the air gets worse, you want to be spending more time in cleaner air if you can. You can see there, I just kind of highlighted the emphasis on if you're having practice, if you're having PE, if you're having recess, if you're being physically active, you want to do it in a place with cleaner indoor air and take steps to clean that air. And like I've kind of been alluding to, you need to prepare for the fact that smoke comes inside. You know, if you have air comes inside your house, it just does. Otherwise, you would have a carbon dioxide problem at home. And you just need to be aware that smoke is going to come inside too. But there are things you can do to protect yourself. We learned a lot about how much smoke comes inside during the 2017 fires. One thing in Seeley Lake, you could just see the smoke inside, and that's never good. When you can see the air, that's never good. But we also have some data looking in Missoula at smoke levels inside buildings because Climate Smart Missoula went around and put air monitors inside buildings around town. And this was where we first started to really learn about how much smoke comes inside and in places that you would hope would have clean indoor air. Commercial buildings, it turns out, it's hard. Commercial buildings or HVAC systems work by taking outside air and bringing it inside. And if you aren't being really proactive about cleaning that air, you're just taking smoke and bringing it inside. You might be cooling it down, but it's still smoky. I'm not going to really get into how to work with HVAC systems for commercial buildings unless you guys really want me to. I'm going to mostly focus on residential, but we've learned a lot about commercial buildings and how much heavy lifting there is to do there. But I wanted to use this chart because the purple line is Amy Sillenberg's house, and Amy, like a lot of us, does not have air conditioning. So she has to open her windows at night and let the cool air in, and the smoke comes in with that. But you can see where she closed her windows in the morning and turned on her portable air cleaners and had the best air in Missoula. So it is possible to clean your indoor air. We saw that she did much better than any of those buildings with their MERV 8 filters, and really drove home the value of having a higher MERV filter and also having HEPA filters. Now you might be asking yourself or asking me, hey Sarah, what's a MERV? MERV stands for Minimum Efficiency Reporting Value. It is just the scale that is used to describe a filter's ability to remove different sizes of particulate. The higher the MERV, the more effective that filter is going to be at removing smaller particles. One thing that it's good to know is in your home furnace, you might just have something that's a MERV 4, maybe a MERV 6. And all of these filters are doing is keeping bug parts and dust out of your motor, which is important, but they're not going to be removing smoke. In a commercial building, you're going to have a MERV 8. That is the commercial standard. They're fine. They're fine, but they aren't designed for wildfire smoke, and they aren't going to be as effective at removing particulate as a MERV 13 or higher. Unfortunately, you don't tend to see MERV 13 filters very common, at least in Montana, because they aren't required anywhere and they're more expensive. But those are the filters that are going to be more effective at removing fine particles. So when you're looking at homes, like I said, I really wanted to focus in on residential settings. There's some really kind of basic things you can do. Close your doors and windows, check for obvious places of leakage of air that's coming inside and seal them up before the smoke event comes in. Use portable air cleaners to create a cleaner space in your home. If you have a central air handler, try to upgrade the filter that you have from a 4 or 6 to at least a more of 11. 11s do pretty okay to clean that air, and then also make sure that you have your fan running so air is constantly going through that filter. You need to also be aware, sorry, my screen's really small, that hot temperatures are going to be a concern. If you don't have air conditioning, you are going to need to cool down your home. And that means you're going to need to open a window and let in the cooler air. And it's probably going to be smoky because we have really bad smoke at night if we have nearby fires. But the heat will kill you faster than the smoke. If you're someone who is so sensitive to smoke that you can't have an hour or two of smoke coming inside, then you should probably get to a place with clean indoor air. But it's very, very, very important that you don't expose yourself to excess heat stress. So the heat and smoke equation, it's a really difficult balancing thing. It's an unfortunate bargain that we have to make if we don't have air conditioning. But if you don't have air conditioning, you have to let the cooler air in and then close up your home and run your portable air cleaners on high to clean up the smoke. Speaking of portable air cleaners, here's some kind of basic tips about air cleaners. They are pretty simple. It is a fan and a filter. You don't need bells and whistles. You don't want something that generates ozone or ions or all these other fancy schmancy things that kill whatever's in the air or reduce odors. You just want a HEPA filter, a true HEPA filter, and a fan. Ozone is very bad for you. Ions are not good for you. You need something that's just going to remove bad things in the air. The good news is a virus will be caught in the HEPA filter. You don't need ions or ozone to trap it. And there's some things to think about when you're choosing a portable air cleaner. You want to make sure it's sized appropriately for the space that it's in. If you have an undersized air cleaner, it's not going to be able to turn that air over multiple times an hour to get you the cleaning that you need. Ideally, you want to turn that air over in your room at least 4 times an hour to really achieve clean air. So you close the doors and windows of the room that it's in and run that sucker on high. You're looking for the, when you're picking out an air cleaner to kind of get an idea of what size of room it's good for, you're looking for the clean air delivery rate, or the CADR, and that will tell you the size of room that it's going to be best in. So be mindful of that and get really the highest cater that you can afford to make sure you're going to get the cleaning that you need. Also be aware that air doesn't corner very well, so you can't use one of these to clean multiple rooms. You need one per room that you're trying to clean, but they can be very, very effective. Just be aware that they are meant for 8-foot tall ceilings. So if you have big, high cathedral ceilings like I do in this room, it's going to take more air cleaners to really change over that air. So be aware of that when you're thinking about a volume of air you're going to be passing through. And you can also, if you don't want to spend money on a portable air cleaner, you can make one with a box fan and a good HVAC filter that is a MERV 13 or higher. The DIY air cleaners, this is a great affordable way to create a cleaner airspace in your home, because like I said, an air cleaner is a fan and a filter. If you do choose to make your own air cleaner, you want to make sure you use a newer box fan. Before 2011, box fans had the unfortunate tendency to overheat and catch on fire, which really undercuts the entire purpose of an air cleaner. But since 2011, there are safety features in place that seem to be really effective. We had an engineer buddy try very hard to catch one of these on fire last year, and he couldn't do it. So I feel pretty good about these. Underwriter Laboratories is actually currently conducting safety testing on the DIY air cleaner, but they do seem to be pretty effective. So if you just get a really good HVAC filter and stick it on the back of a newer box fan, you have yourself a really cheap air cleaner. They are noisy, so keep that in mind when you're looking at using this as a solution. Is they're going to be make a lot more noise than a purpose-built air cleaner. And one thing that I forgot to mention when I was talking about air cleaners, when you're making decisions about purchasing them, do look at reviews about how loud they are, because if it's so loud you aren't going to turn it on, it's not going to do you any good. You also want to look at filter replacement costs. You can get lured in by really glowing reviews of amazing, awesome looking air cleaners, but then when it gets time to replace that HEPA filter, and that's $100 for a HEPA filter, that's a big investment. So before you purchase an air cleaner, do some due diligence, look and see the cost of replacing those HEPA filters, and factor that into your decision making. Also, it's a good idea to stock up on HEPA filters because during a smoke event, those filters might fill up pretty quick and you're going to maybe be replacing them during the smoke event. So I go into every wildfire season with multiple HEPA filters and multiple air cleaners ready for my own personal use. So stock up on filters before the smoke gets here, either HVAC filters for your DIY air cleaner or HEPA filters for your actual air cleaner. And then just on the subject of furnace filters, and if you have a central air handler, some things to think about, because you can, with a central air handler, achieve full house cleaning, which is awesome. There are some things to think about though. You want to make sure you are decoupling your thermostat from your fan. If you are using your air handler for temperature control, as well as air cleaning, your air cleaning is going to stop every time that your furnace kicks off. Anytime you're not changing temperature, you're not getting air cleaning. So you want to just have that fan running constantly. It's also a really good idea to do some investigation to make sure that whatever system you have can cope with a better filter. The better filter that you have, the less easy it is to pull air through it. And so that causes what's called pressure drop. A thicker filter or more hefty filter will have more pressure drop. It just means it's going to slow the air down as it goes across it. And if you're trying to use your air conditioning, that reduced airflow can cause coils to ice up. So if you have an HVAC system that can't maintain airflow through a more efficient filter, then you are potentially going to be risking your air conditioning. So you might want to turn off your air conditioning and just use the fan. The fan will be fine. You don't need to worry about your fan struggling too much, but you want to be careful about your air conditioning coils. You want to also make sure you know where all of your filters go. Some homes, you're going to have multiple places in your home with filters, and the filters are going to be located at the places where the air goes into your furnace from the returning from your home, because it's recirculated through your home. You don't really have much of an outdoor air intake for your residential air handlers, so it's really just recirculating through your home. So your filter is going to be somewhere behind your air return to your furnace, because its job is to stop all the bug parts and hair and whatnot from getting into the filter itself. So you want to kind of walk around your system, identify all the places where you have your return air, figure out where your filters are, see if you can get a better filter to put in there. Make sure the filter fits really nicely into the cartridge. If you have bending or if you have gapping, air is just going to go around it and it's not going to get cleaned. But if you have your fan running and you have at least a MERV 11 filter, you can get pretty decent cleaning in a residential setting and for your whole home. But you just need to do a little bit of investigating before you go this route. But it can be a great way to clean your indoor air. And then if you're looking for a place to get more information, I like directing people to montanawildfiresmoke.org. This is the website run by Climate Smart Missoula. We have a ton of great information up here. There's videos, there's infographics, there's links to my long form writing on this subject. This is, believe it or not, a really shallow dip into the world of creating cleaner indoor air spaces. I could go on about this for a very long time. So if you want to read long form writing with some dumb jokes thrown in, there are links to those blogs on this website on the front page right now. Climate Smart is doing a refresh on this site to update it and get it ready for the upcoming fire season. But MontanaWildfireSmoke.org is just a great resource to learn about a lot about information about wildfire smoke and how to protect yourself from the smoke and make some good decisions and prepare before the smoke arrives. And then always, you know, when the air gets better, go outside. Take advantage of clean air when we get it. Air out your house, air out your lungs. Get out there and really enjoy it. So I'll go ahead and stop now. If you guys want to know more about commercial buildings, we can get back into it. But I want to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Looks like Tom has his hand up.
I do. Thank you. This is great. As someone who is up here in August of 2017, when we had the Rice Ridge thing, we did see smoke inside our rooms. In fact, our little yoga studio at the gym, you could see the gray from one wall to the other. My question is, you know, we have a lot of seniors up this way and some folks kind of struggle for money. Are there any county programs that would help a person buy HEPA filters?
You know, we are kind of we're trying to work on that and figure out what kind of resources we might have. Right now at the health department, we don't have any ability to purchase or get air cleaners for folks. I do have a cache of air cleaners that I loan out to daycares and preschools, but not for individual use. Climate Smart has a cache that's been really kind of rapidly dwindling of air cleaners. We have not managed to land a grant. We've been trying, but one of my gripes with public health is right now for cleaner indoor air work, it's all competitive grants. So if I land a grant, that's great. I can protect people, but if the other community overlands a grant, then they get it and I don't. So we don't currently have a funding mechanism in place, but we are trying to work through and think through ways of maybe teaming up with a food bank to see if we can distribute fans and filters to get the DIY air cleaners. The DIY option is really the least expensive way to get pretty good air cleaning, and they are quite effective.
Okay. I mean, just something, and maybe for the commissioners, that I think the payback's probably pretty good, because I suspect the, you know, lessening of respiratory problems, again, particularly with our senior community, would probably offset what it costs. Okay. Yeah, thanks for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. And Rick, I'm not sure if your hand is up from the last presentation. Okay, nope. Any more questions for Sarah? This was really fantastic. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to just also let all these community councils know, I've already talked to Bert, so I'm talking to him in June. But I would really love to bring this to your councils and do some work to really kind of get into the communities and just kind of share what I know about smoke and prepping folks for upcoming seasons.
Oh, it looks like Lee Bridges has her hand up. Lee? You're muted if you're trying to talk.
Thank you. All that thanks I was spreading around to everybody. Sarah, I got your email today. Thank you so much. We do not meet during the summer months. Can you guys hear me okay?
It's you're really muffled. It sounds like you're talking into a closet.
Okay, well, sorry about that. Does this help at all?
A little, but we'll just listen carefully.
Okay. My question is, in September, which will be my first meeting that I'm able to have you, and I would love to have you in our September 14th meeting, how long do you think the presentation will be so I can gauge that in our agenda?
I can kind of give you as long or short as you want. 20 minutes is probably a pretty safe bet. I can try to rein it on that. My guess, by December, I would probably also be talking about the current smoke impacts. It'll be less of a how to prepare for smoke, but more of a this is what's happening to us talk. But I'm very happy to come and chat with your council.
Okay, thank you. With questions and answers, I'm gonna put you up for a half hour then. Thanks.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks everyone. Moving on to rumble strips. So Melissa Shannon.
Thanks so much. Good evening, everyone. Melissa Shannon, I'm here tonight from Strategies 360. We are a public affairs firm and we work with the Montana Department of Transportation, who I will refer to here on out as MDT for short, on public involvement. And we are currently working on a project in Western Montana in the Missoula district to install low noise Centerline rumble strips. And that construction will be happening through 8 counties in Western Montana, including Missoula County. And I do have a PowerPoint presentation, but as we were getting closer to us in the agenda, I realized I'm not a presenter. And so I can't actually share my screen. So I'm not sure if we could fix that or.
Yeah, Violet can make you a,
yeah,
Violet
you
can
should
make you
be
a presenter.
You should be a
Okay.
presenter now, Melissa. Do you see a little box with an arrow pointing up? Perfect. Yep, sure do. Okay, so let me get my screen shared, and we do have just a brief PowerPoint to go through to talk about the project. Oh boy. There we go. Does that work for everybody? Can you see it?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, awesome. Sometimes it takes a minute to upload.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So as I said, we're going to be installing these low noise rumble strips along center lines. You can see actually in the photo here to the right what they look like. And let me just go to the next slide. So these are the routes in Missoula County where the low noise centerline rumble strips will be installed. On MT 83 from the intersection at MT 200, more commonly referred to as Clearwater Junction, and then to the intersection at Junction 209. The 15 miles kind of before Clearwater Junction, if you're headed from, the Helena area or the Great Falls area on MT 200 towards Missoula. On Mullen Road from the intersection at Cody Lane to just north of Carl Court. And then on US 93 south of Hamilton all the way to Missoula. State Road 210, which is also locally called Old Highway 10 East from Piltsville to the McQuarrie Spur. And State Road 474, also referred to as Old US 10 from Schilling Siding to the Y. And then on US 12, just east of Lolo from Cowcatcher Drive to Graves Creek Road. So now that we've covered the where, let's talk a little bit about the why. These are some of the benefits of centerline rumble strips. They provide immediate and direct feedback to drivers or motorists who unintentionally cross the center line. They act as a guideline to vehicles and snow plows in whiteout or low visibility conditions. They lower the number of highway fatalities and serious injuries as much as 73%. They reduce roadway departures as much as 42%, and they are an incredibly low-cost safety measure when it comes to highway construction, costing only $5,000 per mile, which is much cheaper than alternative safety measures. So what makes these low noise? You're probably familiar with some of the current centerline rumble strips that have been installed across the state, or the shoulder rumble strips that have also been installed across the state. As you know, rumble strips create noise inside the vehicle to alert drivers who may be departing their lanes. These traditional rumble strips are also incredibly loud outside the vehicle and have been a little bit disruptive to passing motorcyclists and vehicles. So MDT has worked to improve the design that have led to these low noise rumble strips, which still alert the driver but are much less noisy outside the vehicle and to nearby areas. These low noise rumble strips are more rounded in shape, decreasing the noise when you drive over them. And as I've recently traveled some of the new installations, specifically on 83 and 200 around Clearwater Junction, they are significantly lower in noise when you pass over them. So what does this mean to folks out there in the world? What's the impacts during construction? What's the impacts to the public? So basically, during construction, traffic will be slowed or stopped as needed. These are very efficient mobile construction units. They move quite quickly, and the machines that cut the rumble strips moves at about 1 mile per hour and can be easily shifted to the shoulder to let traffic pass. Traffic will be given a clearly defined path through the work zones with likely 12-foot restrictions. And then during any necessary paving for the Centerline repair, there will be traffic stops with pilot cars. So we're here tonight because we're doing public involvement for this project. And so far, we've been contacting folks in the installation areas to ensure that they know when and where construction will happen. We're utilizing the following tools: digital marketing, radio ads, direct mail, and then email and text updates. Joining me tonight are two of the amazing folks who work at the Missoula District for MDT. Brett Lloyd and Daryl Williams, and they're here to answer any specific questions you might have about the project. And I would just love to hear from you all about any suggestions or ideas that you might have to help us better communicate to folks in your area, especially if they will be impacted by the construction. And so with that, we're happy to take questions.
Thanks, Melissa. Does anyone have questions for Brett or Daryl or Melissa? I think Bert, do you still have your hand up?
Yes, I do. You know, I let one speaker go by without questions.
Well,
I guess I got to do.
Or Melissa, you're sharing your. Okay, there you go.
No,
we're looking at your email screen. Don't write anything nasty.
If Melissa can stop sharing. There we go.
Sorry, I need to take notes, Bert.
Yeah, for the first thing is for the people at MDT, the work that was done on Highway 210 between Bonner and Clinton, I thank you for that. That was well done, and we appreciate it. It eliminated some yellow no passing lines that apparently had been done by somebody that was either on texting or had been drinking the night before, and that got fixed, and we appreciate that. I had a question for you. Since the old vinyl records worked on vibration, okay, shorter and longer vibrations to create sound, anybody ever considered making the rumble strips with closer and further apart things that would possibly say wake up or stop or crazy, move over? I mean, you can make it at 55 miles an hour, make a, speak.
I can take this one. My name is Brett Lloyd. I'm the project manager for Department of Transportation, and I am administering this project. The simple answer to that would be it will not be cost effective.
Yeah.
Everything's kind of driven off of money, and to come up with something like that would be great to kind of keep people involved with it and really stand out. But they're the things that put these rumble strips in. They're more of a rotary device, so periodically it cuts the rumble strips in. So to do something like that would be a great idea, but I don't think it will happen in the near future.
I tend to think outside the box.
I like that. I like that.
Thank you.
Lee, do you have your hand up? And you're muted if you're speaking.
Somebody's typing.
That's Melissa taking notes. Lee, do you have your hand up? Okay, any other questions or comments on rumble strips? We'll move to junk vehicles. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
I will put in the
Great
chat how you can contact us to sign up for stakeholder updates and text alerts in regards to construction.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, Shannon Terrio.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shannon Terrio. I'm the Director of Environmental Health at the City County Health Department, and it seems like this is a pretty health department heavy meeting tonight, which is awesome. So I've been asked to talk about the junk vehicle program and what we do and what we don't do in the junk vehicle program and what opportunities exist with the junk vehicle program. And so I think that the important thing to know is that a junk vehicle is a very specific definition, and a car can look really junky without being a junk vehicle. And so a junk vehicle has to be wrecked, ruined, dismantled, or discarded, and it has to be inoperable, and it has to be not licensed. And so you could have a car that can't drive, is missing half of the side. As long as it's licensed, it's not considered a junk vehicle, and we really have no ability to deal with it within the junk vehicle program. Having said that, if anybody wants to get rid of a vehicle like that, we're willing to take it, but we can't make them do something about it if they don't want to get rid of it. So the concepts with junk vehicle program is basically, if you have a vehicle that's a junk vehicle that meets that definition, it has to be shielded from public view. Public view is defined also very specifically as you can see it from the center of a public roadway. And so in this definition, a public roadway is it's not defined as being publicly maintained. It can be a privately maintained road that the public has free access to. And so if there's a junk vehicle on property and you can see it from a publicly or privately maintained road that the public has access to, it has to be what we call shielded. If it's one junk vehicle, that can be a car cover. Tarps don't count, but otherwise it has to be behind a fence or behind a building, somehow that you can't see it. The junk vehicle program is available, actually, it's supposed to be available in every county in the state, and it is funded through our motor vehicle licensing. And we will take in the junk vehicle program any car that's released to us, any motor vehicle that's released to us by an owner. So if an owner no longer wants their car, doesn't want their junk car, then we can take it with a release. If it's abandoned, so the car has been left either on public or private property, there are a few more steps and a few more restrictions. If a car has been abandoned either on public or private property, we can take it if we have a release from the sheriff's department, as long as it meets the definition of a junk vehicle, although it doesn't matter if it's currently licensed or not for abandoned vehicles, and it has to be worth less than $500. The reason why there's this $500 cap is because when we take a vehicle, it becomes property of the state, and it could be disposed of immediately without any attempt to contact the person who may own that vehicle. And so any vehicle that is less than $500 meets the definition of junk vehicle. The assumption is that somebody has walked away from it. If they have left it in a public space or on property that's not their own for a certain amount of time. If it's worth over $500, then it has to go through a different process. That's usually a private tower will take it to their tow yard, and they'll try to attempt to contact the owner of the vehicle. And if they're not able to get in contact with them, or if the owner no longer wants it, it can be signed over to the private tow company. So that's kind of the gist of the junk vehicle program. It's really about motorized vehicles, but the state legislature, both in the last session and this session, also allows us, it's a temporary law that has a sunset in 2 years. They extended the sunset this time around, but allows us to deal with non-motorized vehicles. And so it still has to be a vehicle. So it has to be something that's capable of carrying people or goods on the highway. So a boat is not considered a vehicle, and a wheelchair, I guess, is specifically not considered a vehicle in the definition. So it has to meet the definition of a vehicle, but like a pull behind trailer or a horse trailer, if it is junk, so it's wrecked, ruined, dismantled, or discarded, and it appears inoperable. So there's something wrong with it so that it can't really be pulled. And if it is causing community decay or a public nuisance, we're allowed to use a portion of our junk vehicle funds to get rid of that, to recycle it. And it also, of course, has to be less than $500 if it's abandoned. And so all of these things have to come together in order for us to take it. And so it's a great program, but in some ways it's pretty narrow. And I know Bert is very familiar with what we can and can't do with the junk vehicle program, because we've dealt with some issues in Bonner when we were trying to figure out how to make a property look less junky. But basically, if there is a junk vehicle that's bothering you, or you have a junk vehicle on your property that you want to get rid of, then we are the people to call. And so you can reach us at 258-4755. Or if this is a car that somebody has abandoned on your property, then the place to call is actually the Sheriff's Department. And I have that number written down as well. And that is 258-4804. And there's a private property release that they require, and then they can come out and tag it. And if it meets the definition of a junk vehicle, we can take it. I think that one thing that has been coming up more and more lately is campers, and campers that look really super junky and they might not run anymore. However, if somebody is living in a vehicle, we're not going to take it as an abandoned vehicle because it's not abandoned, even if it's not moving. So there is that issue to deal with, and we've worked with the commissioners to try to find solutions in that situation. And there are times where we're able to work with Public Works or other departments to try to kind of come up with a creative solution, because there's not a super clear path on that. I guess just the other thing to tell you is that there's also a community decay ordinance in the county. It applies to the entire county. The community decay ordinance is both fantastic and really hard to kind of apply sometimes, hard to get compliance with. But if a car is super junky, doesn't meet the definition of a junk vehicle, it might meet the definition of community decay. And so there might be a path for us to work with the property owner to try to deal with it. So I don't know if there are any questions on that. I'm happy to answer.
That was great, Shannon. Rick, looks like your hand is up.
This time I actually did mean to raise my hand. So I don't know if James Beyond Ditch works with your department.
Yep.
You know, I'm in Bonner area, and we have a lot of wide spots in the road. People tend to park things there, and somebody parked a single wide mobile home there for about 6 months. That's not an abandoned vehicle, but I'll tell you the great thing that happened was he was able to find out the owner because it was written on there. I relayed that to my park owner, and 2 months later somebody bought it and moved it because they found someone that needed to replace a mobile. So there's a lot of ways that we can get rid of these things, move on. Just so giving us some alternatives.
Yeah, and Rick, I so appreciate that. Jim works really hard to try to identify who the owner is of a particular vehicle or trash or, as you said, a mobile home. He works really hard to work with them and to convince them to get it out of where it's causing problems. And he's had a lot of success in his approach. So I appreciate that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Well, it ended up a nice win-win situation for everybody. The guy got rid of something that was sitting on the side of the road. Somebody that needed a home has a home now. So
right.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks for sharing such a positive junk vehicle story, Rick. We don't hear that very often, so thank you. Tom, you have your hand up.
Great, just a quick question. Up in the north part of the county, we have a lot of motorized vehicles that aren't cars, like rubber tired skidders, bulldozers, and some of those are probably 30 plus years old. Do they qualify to be moved?
That is such a good question, and it's kind of a difficult question. And so technically, I'm not sure about equipment. I don't know if equipment meets the definition of a junk vehicle. And in fact, in the time that I've been working with the junk vehicle program, we haven't dealt with that. So we would probably approach that as community decay. But other things like a school bus certainly do, and you know, even a truck, even a larger truck could. I don't think we have the ability to tow it, but we also have the ability to contract with towers with bigger tow trucks. So we do own a tow truck and a flatbed rollback, but there are some that we just can't take, you know, we can't move. And that goes for like very large RVs as well. So we've been able to get rid of RVs that were just used to the end of their life and have really become just a place to kind of graffiti and, you know, pull apart. And so we've been able to get rid of some of those that way.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Bert?
Yeah, Shannon, I had not updated you on what was going on out in Milltown and West Riverside, but so I think since you mentioned my name, I'll bring it up. It turns out that the new owner of the Harris Thermal property, he and I took a walk down through there and he looked at it and he said, I'm just going to move the fence out toward the road to the edge of my property and nobody can park there. So he plans on doing that. He said he's going to try to get it done this year. So
Okay.
we dropped that problem entirely.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Tom, is your hand up again?
No, I forgot to take it down.
No
I'm
worries.
used to Zoom where it comes down.
Well, thanks so much, Shannon. It's 7:48, so if no one else has any questions, we'll run through the sharing portion of the. It looks like we don't have many folks left on. Well, Violet, do you want to run down the list?
Yeah, let me just go council by council for who we have on today. I also see that Dave joined us, so welcome, Dave. Hopefully
Oh my goodness, yeah, apologies.
Award ceremony went well.
Yes, welcome everyone. Better late than never, as I always say.
Well, Dave, it's difficult to make a grand entrance if you're first. So.
Well, let me just run through council by council here for who we still have representing on the call. I'll start with Bonner Milltown. We have both Bert and Rick on the call.
This is Bert. I've made all the comments I need to make tonight. Thank you. And again, thanks for doing this.
And I as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Bert. Thanks, Rick. How about Lee Bridges in East Missoula? Any updates or questions?
Thank you. We do not meet in June, July, or August. Our last meeting was this month. I forget the date. It was the second Tuesday of the month, of course. So we don't meet again until September 14th, the second Tuesday of the month. We are in the middle of a lot of rezoning and zoning and all kinds of stuff going on through the summer. So we'll probably have some special meetings that we have to arrange for the public just to notify them on what's going on. So that's pretty much our current updates.
Thanks, Lee. I don't think we have anyone from Lolo Community Council, but stop me if I'm mistaken. But we do have Tom Browder from Sealy Lake Community Council. Tom, any updates from Sealy Lake?
Well, you know, I really appreciate these meetings. I mean, they're an enormous help for us, but no, this is Memorial Day weekend, so we're ready for what will probably be a record-setting crush of tourists. You know, tight on accommodations and everything, but good for the local merchants. So yeah, good meeting. Thanks a lot for it. And we will meet in June, not July and August, and then again in September. But I guess those of us that went through the 2017 Rice Ridge fire really appreciated the update on the air quality. So thanks for that.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. I don't see anyone from Swan Valley on the call, so I'll go down to West Valley. I think we still have Tom Tucker on with us. Tom, any updates or questions?
Well, no updates, but I've got a couple of questions. One of them is that with all this rain and all these roads that have that mag chloride on it, now they've turned into pretty bad potholes. So when the rain quits, does the county have any idea when they might get around to grading the roads?
Yes, this will be a public works question.
The other one is county commissioners. Do you have a plan on making an agenda for the amount of expenditures that you plan on doing here for, you know, a 2 or 3 year plan on projects or money spending coming up? Because I know you guys mentioned that since the state took away the tax on the gas, now you're going to raise our property tax values. So I've had a few people ask me where you're headed on that.
No, and your question's it's perfectly timed because this is the beginning of budget season, and I'm just seeing my compatriots here. Josh and Dave jumped on.
Yeah, I could jump right in, and I would welcome any feedback from my other two commissioner colleagues also. Yes, every single year at this point in the year, we begin our work on the next fiscal year's budget. So we are, as we speak, beginning, not quite deliberations yet, but we are hearing from departments, hearing their priorities, and we'll be moving into more formal deliberations on our fiscal year 2022 budget. And as part of that, we will be looking at what our projected revenues are, what does it cost to maintain the existing levels of service, what ability, if any, do we have to enhance services? Because rarely, if ever, do I hear from anyone who says, you know what, my road maintenance is way too good, scale it back. It's quite the contrary. So with a limited pie of resources, we are needing to figure out how to split that ever more thinly or respond to constituent needs. As you mentioned, Tom, we no longer have the gas tax available to us, and that will decrease our ability to the tune of about $500,000 or so worth of road maintenance that we had hoped to do every year. So we will need to figure out how to prioritize our resources. Josh, Juanita.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. You said all that really well. Only little bits I might add. There were projects up in the Sealy area through FLAP, the Federal Land Access Program, that we were going to apply for using some of that gas tax as match and then accessing far larger sums of federal money. And there's just no way we can do those projects right now. Losing the gas tax was pretty horrible. And Tom, I just want to get clear kind of how you phrase that. So you guys are going to raise our property taxes. If this is just that phrase that's kind of stuck in my head, that is nothing that no one wants to do that. And the effort to get the gas tax in effect was so that wouldn't have to be done and we could get work done. We're in a tough spot now. As Dave said, everybody wants the services and no one wants to pay for it. So one thing that might be helpful for you guys as a community council up in Sealy, if there are projects you feel like are really important. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, different Tom. He's in Evero.
I got
Oh,
the
do I
wrong
have that
Tom.
right?
I'm sorry.
West Valley.
We've
West
got
Valley,
everything
I'm so
from,
embarrassed. That's terrible.
Third
we've got
time's a charm.
everything.
I got
Okay,
the wrong
so here's
Tom.
my,
Regardless,
here's my
let us know
question
if you're-
now. We have everything
projects
from C3 Everett all the way up to the top end of 9 Mile to the Mineral County border. And that was another thing too. How did that project go of rebuilding the road up there from the bridge up to the end of 9 Mile Road? Did that project get done? What about Sealy and,
Let me get out.
what about
I didn't get
the Rattlesnake?
that other thing. Let me just get in here, and then we'll take on that road. You could get with your community council, and if there are road projects that you all believe are of high priority, you should let us know, and we'll let Shane know, and we'll see how that fits in with everything. But letting us know would be of great help.
Yeah, but my question is, you already allocated last month that you were going to do 9 Mile, Rattlesnake, and Sealy. Where are you at on those projects?
Yeah, Tom, that's not quite accurate. What we did is put in applications.
We applied.
We applied for federal grant money, and the challenge though is with those federal grants, it requires a match, a local match, and we had been planning on covering that local match through some of the gas tax dollars we were bringing in. Without that as an option, we're going to have to think creatively about how we can pull that off if we get awarded the project. That is totally up in the air. We just submitted an application for 9 Mile and project up in the Swan, number of other projects, Sawmill Gulch north of Missoula. Yet to be determined whether we'll even get that, but right now it's just a waiting game.
So right
And
now
if
they're all
we
on
do
hold.
get them, we right now don't have the money. We'd have to figure it out.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
so in other words, it's all on hold.
Yeah,
So my
totally.
other-
Waiting in the process.
I don't know if hold is the right word for it there. We have to hear from the federal government that they've honored our application. And if that's the case, then we got to figure out how to get the money.
Yeah, all right. So that's fine. And the first question that I asked was, do you guys build a budget for 2 or 3 years out? The city and the state usually requires those. So does the county commissioners have a 2 or 3 year budget plan, or you just do it year
Well,
by
what we
year
do have
annually?
for roads is we have a list of priority projects that go out into multiple years.
Yeah, and Tom, for local government, city or county, we have no ability to adopt multi-year budgets. We're precluded from that. We can only adopt a budget for the year to come, which is not to say that we don't try to do long-range planning. And in fact, we have directed our staff to work on a county-wide transportation infrastructure plan and hope to be kicking that off in the relatively short term, I hope, because you're right. Even if we cannot formally adopt a multi-year budget, we need to be looking at what our needs are and how we save to do that maintenance over time, so that we're not stuck with a big bill at some point and have not adequately budgeted or saved over time to help pay for that.
And for roads,
I did want to reiterate though that we do have a list of priority projects that span multiple years. That exists.
And that's
So one of those was the Mullen Road repair from Missoula to I think it was Frenchtown or Pulp Mill Road or something, because that was discussed about 3 years ago. So.
And
and that's a Montana Department of
NDT project,
Transportation.
and it's happening.
Yep. That's a state.
So that
state,
is in the works.
Yep.
That is.
Okay.
And Public Works has 3 and 5 and 10-year plans that are internally, but so definitely it's planned and budgeted for, but like I said, it's an internal.
All right.
But
All
we
right,
can
well,
we can share
all I
that
got.
with you too. Okay. Anything else? Ooh, 8 o'clock. Okay.
I think that was all the councils that are representing today, unless I missed anybody. Oh,
Looks
Rick
like
just put his
Rick,
hand up.
yeah.
I just want to say something on a light note. Music is back at Kettle House Amphitheater with a vengeance, and music is back in Missoula. So we're happy to see that. It's a wonderful sign of life.
I agree.
Well, it is, and we have the Bob Marshall Festival first week of August up here in Sealy, so I agree with you. It's almost back to normal.
Well said. We'll see you guys at a show. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thanks, Warren. Good meeting. Really appreciate it.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Goodbye.